Hi, my name is Damien Rodgers, and my video will be about how substance abuse, such as alcohol, nicotine, cocaine, and others, can be ameliorated by mindfulness-based practices. I will take a deep dive into the mechanisms and overview of how it works. We will go over four major points: the damage, substance cues, meditation's morphology, and meditation's superpower. As we have discussed this semester in lecture, substance abuse and addiction are commonly used interchangeably, yet the diagnostic criteria of substance abuse are that of tolerance, cravings, withdrawal, attempts to quit or cut down, and disruptions to life. Although most of these criteria I just mentioned are displayed in addiction, it is certain that relapse is seen in substance abuse. Our first section that we will go over is the damage. The lecture tells us the brain areas that are affected are the prefrontal cortex with an inhibitory effect, motor control areas predominantly in the subcortices, and memory impairment in the hippocampus, specifically with LTP. So how can paying attention to thoughts help? A great article titled Mindfulness Meditation in the Treatment of Substance Use Disorders and Preventing Future Relapse by Sarah Pretty and colleagues instructs us that substance use disorders are driven by dysregulation of neural processes underlying reward learning and executive functioning. Emerging evidence suggests that mindfulness training can target these neurocognitive mechanisms to produce significant therapeutic effects on SUDs and prevent relapse. Pertaining to their statement and their abstract, two questions come to my mind. What are the neural processes that are dysregulated, and how is it that mindfulness can help? And secondly, if it can help, how are we positive that relapse would not occur? This leads to our next topic of substance cues. Referring to the previous journal, their introduction goes on to state, for those who receive intervention, relapse is all too common, meaning that they sought help, yet their addiction was insurmountable. The authors begin to peer into aspects of mindfulness-based practices by telling us that they reduce dependence cravings as well as other addiction-related maladies. They attribute these causes to be from their improved moods and regulation of their emotion. Although this information is astounding, what is happening in the brain? To reference another journal, David Nutt and colleagues in the article Alcohol in the Brain tells us that evidence suggests that chronic exposure to alcohol can lead to functional dysregulation of key brain systems that control behavior, such as reward processing, impulse control, and emotional regulation. Their paper then informs us how reward processing, the ventral striatum, and the ventral tegmental area positively reinforce substance abuse. Then it mentions quantified dopamine release for conditioned environmental cues, or as they call it, substance cues that lead to substance seeking. And it mentions that even with abstinence, these cues can still play a role in relapse. So, overall, can the dysregulation in substance abuse be attenuated? Can we curtail the substance cues? This leads to our third section, meditation's morphology. We will commence with an insight from Sarah Pretty's journal, which tells us that the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, and the dorsal and ventral lateral prefrontal cortex, PFC, are affected in addiction. How can meditation help? They initiate a claim that mindfulness-based interventions tend to be mental training designed to exercise the neurocognitive processes that deteriorate. They tell us that it strengthens prefrontally mediated brain circuits, integral to cognitive control. This essentially reroutes the brain to gain self-control of the automatic habit. Another journal to reference is Mindfulness Training Targets Neurocognitive Mechanisms of Addiction at the Attention Appraisal Emotion Interface by Eric Garland and colleagues. Their journal discusses that prolonged meditation may play a role in neural and cognitive plasticity. This leads us to our last and final section of meditation superpower. What is it? How can we attain it? What about someone who's never meditated? How will they differ? Eric Garland's 8-week study showed significant differences in gray matter volume, especially in the prefrontal cortex. There are varying forms of meditation. The study informs us that focused attention and open monitoring forms exhibit a quote-unquote turning on effect of neurocognitive processes that are discerned to go wrong. As it explains Succinctly in the journal, mindfulness-based interventions may be fruitfully conceptualized as means of training or exercising prefrontal mediated cognitive control networks which have become atrophied or usurped in the service of drug seeking and use. That's amazing. For someone to literally sit and focus on their breath and thoughts, this shows physiological changes that can alter a person's life. But how? The journal then informs us that the PFC is strengthened, thereby modulating other areas as well. This is akin to a superpower in my eyes. The journal calls it neurocognitive flexibility. How does this neurocognitive flexibility work though? Essentially, it augments what they call a domain general resource that may project its power within various psychological health areas. The benefits? Attention is increased, emotions are regulated, urges for addiction are lessened, stress reactivity is enhanced. So, it might not be the number one answer to rid substance cravings, but it surely is an adjunct that will rewire the brain to lessen the addiction. To answer the question from the table of contents, you won't become Super Saiyan by meditating. But if you are addicted to a substance or not, I'll encourage you to take 5 minutes out and utilize the information provided. Thank you for watching. What's listed now are the references that I acquired for the research. Thank you for watching.